What if I told you there's a place on Earth where in the summertime the sun never sets? The mountains are made out of ice. The main inhabitants are penguins. Feel completely out of place when we're there. Most people see Antarctica on the globe as that bottom white mass of nothingness. But for the lucky few who get to visit Antarctica, they experience a sensory overload that can change you forever. But there's a catch. Traveling to Antarctica is completely different than traveling anywhere else. And if you book the wrong expedition or plan the wrong journey, you might end up just seeing Antarctica through a window and not really experiencing anything it has to offer, like walking on the ice with the penguins. In this video, we're going to talk about the different ways to travel to Antarctica, and towards the end, I'll reveal the one specific travel mistake that can actually get you banned from stepping foot on the continent altogether. So you want to make sure that you pay attention to the end because that's really important. Hello, and welcome back to Dreamweaver Travels, where we talk about all the unique places you can travel to and the best way to travel there. Today, we're talking about Antarctica. So before we get started, if you're looking forward to visiting Antarctica, go ahead down in the comments right now. Go ahead, type the letters ICE, ICE, down in the comment, just so I know who's planning a trip to Antarctica or who wants to go. Antarctica is the most complex destination in the world. It's completely different from every other destination. Things that you normally need to worry about, you don't need to worry about in Antarctica. But then there's a whole list of other things that you do need to worry about that you don't need to worry about anywhere else. So it is a completely different animal when it comes to planning. And in today's video, we're going to help you figure out how to plan that perfect Antarctic expedition. First, let's talk about the main ways you can travel to Antarctica. And there's 4 basic ways you can travel to Antarctica. There's the most common, which is on an expedition cruise. These ships usually hold between 1 to 200 people. Now, there's some benefits to going on an expedition cruise. One, you're going to have direct access. This is going to be your best way to get your feet on the continent of Antarctica. Because there's very strict environmental rules, only 100 people are allowed to go on shore. So later on in the video, I'm going to talk about how that can really play a part in making sure you choose the right ship and the right itinerary for your vacation. More on that later. But know that smaller ships mean more time on the ice. There's only 100 people on the ship. That means all 100 can go on board, can go ashore at the same time. If there's 200, then you're going to have to split that time into 2 different groups. 300, now it's 3 different ways. So you only get a third of the time. So really, on this type of trip, the smaller the ship, the better off you're going to be. What is it like to travel to Antarctica? For the most part, you're going to be on a cruise ship. You're going to travel down to South America. You're going to get on your ship. You're going to cross the Drake's Passage, bringing you into Antarctica. From there, most of your days are going to be spent on Zodiacs doing land tours. If you don't know what a Zodiac, that's a small inflatable boat that the smaller ships use, sort of like in their tender operation. But they only hold 15 to 20 people instead of the big tender ships that you might be used to seeing. Some of the negatives to going on such a small ship on an expedition is going to be that Drake's Passage. Remember, the smaller ship, the more likely you're going to feel the waves. The Drake's Passage is known to either have perfectly calm seas or extremely aggressive waves. So if you're prone to seasickness, you're going to want to take this into account, especially during that Drake Passage part of your trip. Also, on a smaller ship, the smaller the ship, typically the smaller the cabins are going to be. So if you've ever been on a cruise, you know that cabins are typically small. On smaller ships, they're even smaller. But the odds are you're going to be up on the top deck looking out at Antarctica most of the time, and you're going to spend very little time in your cabin. So who is the traditional small ship expedition type cruise for? It's for those people that really want to get their boots dirty, get onto Antarctica, actually walk on the ice, experience Antarctica firsthand. The second big option is going to be a luxury cruise. These are high-end ships that offer fine dining, spas, possibly even helicopters and submersibles or small submarines that you can go on. So the benefits of a luxury cruise, well, it's a luxury cruise. So you're going to get all those amenities, that fine dining, all of those luxury amenities, even though you might be in a very hostile environment of the Antarctic. What can you expect to experience from a luxury type cruise? You'll see the sights from your heated balcony or state of the art lounge with occasional shore excursions. So you're not going to have as many opportunities to actually step foot on Antarctica, but you're going to be much more comfortable when you're viewing Antarctica. Some of the negatives of taking a luxury cruise, well, luxury is going to come with rigid schedules because the ships often have more passengers. Your time on land is going to be very restricted in order to accommodate everyone, meaning you might need to spend more time watching instead of exploring. Who is a luxury cruise best for? That's for travelers that want to see Antarctica, get to know what it's like, but don't really want to sacrifice that 5-star experience. The third main way that you can experience Antarctica is what's called a fly cruise. This is what you would do if you're really nervous about going through the Drake's Passage. So instead of sailing from South America, crossing the notorious Drake's Passage, this is going to give you an opportunity to fly directly to King George Island, which is in Antarctica, and then you would board your ship there. Now, the benefits are you're going to have time and comfort. You're going to skip the Drake Passage, which is 2 days of potential massive swells and seasickness. And the experience is you're going to save 4 days of sea travel, which is going to be perfect if you have a shorter time frame to get your trip in. And it's going to save you from that seasickness. The negatives to taking this type of a trip, extreme weather can often ground these flights. So a single storm can delay your trip for days, multiple days. And these itineraries are significantly more expensive than just sailing. So you're going to have a very expensive flight, and then you're going to have a very expensive cruise. So it's probably even more expensive than the luxury option. But if you're really prone to seasickness, this might be your best option. And so who is this best for? It's best for those people that either have limited time or are very prone to seasickness. And then there's a fourth way you can go to see Antarctica. And I'm just going to touch on this one briefly because I don't recommend it. And that would be taking one of the main cruise lines like Royal Caribbean or Norwegian or Celebrity, any one of those. Most of them offer Antarctic cruises, and they're going to be on their smaller ships, but their smaller ships hold 1,000 people. Now, I'm going to tell you later why you definitely do not want to take this kind of cruise. I feel you'd be very disappointed, and I would not recommend it. So I'm not even going to talk too much about it. I'll give you the real reason why. You'll see later on why you definitely don't want to take that type of cruise. All right, so now that we've talked about the different ways, let's talk about how you would even go about planning a trip to Antarctica. Because it's not like a typical cruise where you would book a flight to the port, to Miami, say, or Washington for Alaska, stay there for a day, get on your ship, have your cruise, fly home. This is going to be very different. One, the seasonality is going to play a major part in what you're going to see. Not that there's necessarily a bad season, but depending on what you want to see is really going to say when you want to go. I'm going to refer to my notes for this. First of all, like Alaska, Antarctica does have a season. It actually runs opposite of Alaska, because Alaska is up north, Antarctica is down south, so they're on opposite time frames. So the only time you're really going to be able to go to Antarctica is between October and March. Now, October and November, that's when you're going to see giant icebergs and the pristine snow, because that's really their springtime. So that's coming out of winter, so you're going to have a lot of snow on the ground, and you're going to get to see big icebergs because of all that stuff is just starting to melt. In December, January, that's when you're hitting those summer periods in Antarctica. Summer, not really summer like the Caribbean, but still summer. And that's where you're going to get 24 hours of daylight. So no darkness, every time is daylight. And that's also when the penguins start to hatch their chicks. So If you want to see penguins hatching, that's going to be when you're going to want to go. And then in February and March, that's going to be kind of equivalent to their full time. And that's going to be best for whale watching and receding ice, allowing you to travel further south. So if you want to get further inland, you're going to have to travel after that ice is melted. So in that February, March timeframe. And then from April all the way until the end of September is their winter time. So you're not going to travel during their winter time. It's just too treacherous. You're going to want to choose which one of those time frames really fits into what you want to see. Now let's talk about gear, because unlike a Caribbean trip where you pack some shorts, pack some swimsuits, and you're good to go, traveling to Antarctica is a completely different animal. You're going to have a lot of different weather, very inclement weather, cold weather. So you want to make sure that you're prepared for that. You're going to want to bring layers. You're going to want to have what's called an underlayer, think like long johns or undershirts. And what you're looking for in that is you're looking for its ability to absorb moisture and keep you warm. Then you're going to have a middle layer, your pants, your shirt, your jacket, normal outerwear. And then you're going to have your outer layer. And your outer layers you're going to want to be waterproof. So some sort of waterproof pants, a waterproof coat, heavy coat. And the reason why you're going to wear those layers is so that if it starts to get warmer, you can remove layers. If it gets colder, you can put layers on. It gives you that flexibility to meet the changing weather, because the weather does change all the time when you're in Antarctica. But there's also some good news about that. Most of the expedition cruises will supply you with heavy-duty parkas and waterproof boots. Most of the time, they'll supply those boots specifically because you have to wear certain footwear when you go ashore in Antarctica. They're very environmentally conscious. So what they need to do is they clean the boots right before you get on the Zodiac. Then you go and you explore. And when you come back, they take those boots back and they clean them again. That's so that there's no risk of cross-contamination being carried from place to place. So they're very strict on that, but the good news is they are going to supply that equipment. So you're going to make sure that you know what the cruise is going to supply, so that way then you don't need to bring it, and you want to know what they're not going to supply, so you make sure that you do bring it. So you want to pay attention to those things. The next big thing about traveling to Antarctica is the paperwork. The IAATO, or the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators, has very strict guidelines. You're going to need medical clearances. You're going to need specific insurance that covers emergency evacuation. Remember, this isn't like the Caribbean where they can send a helicopter out, pick you up, and bring you to a hospital within an hour. You're in Antarctica. Your nearest hospital is not that close. So that evacuation is going to be more extensive should you get hurt. So you want to make sure that you have the right insurance that's going to cover those emergencies, because one evacuation can cost upwards of $100,000 or more, depending on where you get hurt and how severe the accident is. So insurance is a major thing. As far as paperwork goes, that medical evaluation is going to be very important. I'm going to talk about that in a little while, but that's the one thing that you could show up, fly all the way to South America, and when you're going to board the ship, they say, "I'm sorry, you can't board." And then at that point, you're pretty much out of luck, because there's one thing that can cancel everything on your paperwork. So when it comes to paperwork, there's a couple of things that you're going to want to do. You want to make sure that you have a certified expedition checklist. And the most common paperwork issue that people run into when traveling to Antarctica is the medical fitness form. It's not just a questionnaire. It must be signed by a physician within a specific window. So you can't get it now and then travel in 2 years. Usually it's 6 months. So you have to have that physical within 6 months of your travel. And if your doctor forgets to stamp a date, then the ship's doctor can legally deny you boarding. So that's that one thing that you want to make sure that you have buttoned up, is that physical, that medical information. Make sure that your doctor has signed it in all the right places, put all the appropriate stamps on it, All of that stuff needs to be in tip-top shape or else your entire cruise can be ruined in an instant. And when it comes to that paperwork, you want to make sure that you have hard copies of that paperwork and you also have digital copies in your phone just in case. That way, then you know that you have hard copies, you have a digital copy. Typically, when I'm talking important paperwork, usually I'll make 2 copies. I'll put one that's in my luggage, one that's with my travel stuff. And that way, then if something gets lost, I have another copy somewhere. I also always keep them on my phone. So if I ever needed to reprint them, I could. If I'm at a hotel that can print for me, I have that as a second option. And remember earlier when I was talking about the types of trips and I said you don't want to take a larger ship? Well, here's the reason for that. If you book a cruise ship that holds over 500 passengers, any of your main line, even their smallest ships, are going to be over 500 passengers. They're legally prohibited from landing. So when you go on that Princess cruise to Antarctica, you're not going to have any landings. It's going to be all scenic cruising. Now, if you're interested in just scenic cruising, by all means look into it. But if you really want to get on Antarctica and step foot on Antarctica, those cruises are not going to give you that opportunity. Not even for minutes. They're not allowed to. They're legally prohibited from it. So in those cases, you're going to see Antarctica, but you're never going to touch it. And in my opinion, if I'm going to suffer through the Drake's Passage, fly to South America, get on a little tiny ship, I want to put my feet on Antarctica. It's kind of, to me, that's a must have. So I would highly recommend not taking one of those cruises. And the other thing, as far as ship choice, if your goal is to step on Antarctica, you want to make sure that the cruise ship is IAATO Category 1 or Category 2. That'll let them actually have those Zodiacs go on board. So that might be a question that you want to ask. Now, of course, if you work with me as a travel agent, I'm going to make sure to ask those questions of the cruise line to make sure that they have that certification. So that way, then you know exactly what you're getting. So as you can see, traveling to Antarctica can be complex, from logistics to choosing the right type of sailing. All of those things are very complex and planning them can be very tricky. That's why I would highly recommend you get a travel agent for this type of trip. You can use me, use another travel agent you're comfortable with. This is one of those trips that you definitely want to have a travel agent to help you navigate the uniqueness of traveling to Antarctica. It's one thing if you want to plan your own trip to Italy, you want to plan your own trip to the UK, they're all going to be fairly similar. If you've done some traveling, you're going to kind of know what to expect and you can work your way through it. Antarctica is a completely different animal. So you definitely want to get someone that knows how to book these trips, knows the ins and outs, knows that they need to be Category 1 or Category 2 certified, knows what sort of medical forms you need, can help you navigate all those intricacies. Just flying to South America and finding a hotel in South America near the port where you're going to get your ship might be difficult. So these are all things that you want to take into account. And it's always good to have a professional in your corner. Again, if you want to use me, links will be down in the comments. Feel free to call me, email me, send me a text. We'll get together. We'll talk about it. We'll figure out that best vacation for you. Now, if you found this informative, learned something, interested now in going to Antarctica, go ahead, give me that thumbs up. If you want to hear about more destinations and how to travel to them, go ahead and subscribe. I'll have more destinations coming out. And in closing, if you travel to Antarctica, you're going to feel very small in the best possible way. It's quiet, it's grand, and it's waiting for you. Highly unexplored, raw nature. And penguins. Who doesn't want to see penguins? Well, until the next time, keep traveling and enjoy your vacations.